Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Pass it to Lakiana.
Hey everyone, Lakian Jury, he, him, his pronouns, alternate co-chair of PCCEP. And I'll pass it to Celeste, who I haven't had a chance to meet, but welcome on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Celeste Carey, female pronouns, new member of PCCEP, and I guess I'll cop to it since Claudia could point finger at me, acting chair for the Racial Equity Subcommittee.
Yay, thank you.
Let's see who's in my sphere. Let's see. I guess not picking on you, Claudia, but you were right next to me.
Hi, welcome everyone to the steering committee meeting for PCCEP. My name is Claudia. I am the project assistant. And I will pass it to Theo. Theo, have you went?
Oh, thank you. A lot of use he, him pronouns. I'm a PCCEP staff member, and I will pass it to Barb.
Okay.
Barb,
Hey
you're
guys,
up.
we weren't sure you were going to pass it to me. So hello, I'm Barb. I am not a member of PCCEP, but I'm active on the Behavioral Health Subcommittee, and everybody here probably knows that already anyway. So friendly PCCEP groupie, here to support everyone. Who hasn't been called or who just, Mary Claire just logged on.
I did. Mary Claire Buckley, Portland Police. And if you guys wouldn't mind, can I just say one thing? I have another 6 o'clock meeting, so I can't stay for the whole thing. But I did want to take the opportunity to remind everybody that next week the Bureau is holding its precinct meetings at East, North, and Central next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you can take your choice or all three if you got no life.
Oh,
But no, I'm only kidding.
no life.
And it starts at 6 to 7:30, and it's Zoom, and I think you all got invites. And we hope that you'll join us for one of those evenings. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Claire. And since you joined late, I'll just call on Tia.
Okay, hi, I'm Tia Palafox, she, her pronouns. I'm an alternate to the Behavioral Health Subcommittee. I'm feeling pretty tired, but I wanted to try to keep up with everything. So I'm here to listen and stay involved. Thank you.
Thanks. Leah?
Hi everyone, Leah Drebin, community member. Sorry, my camera's off. I'm making dinner for my son right now. But yeah, active participant here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Barbara Bushinsky? Barbara, you there? Okay. Mark Porras?
Hi, Mark Porras here, just interested community member.
Okay, Barbara, I see you. Bushinsky, do you want to introduce yourself? You're unmuted. Barbara, can you hear me? Okay, we'll circle back. Rochelle.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Silver. I'm a community member and a member of the Mental Health Alliance.
Thank you. And Anika.
Hi, good evening. This is Anika Benta-Albert, Deputy City Attorney for the City of Portland and Liaison Attorney for PCCEP.
Okay, thank you. Barbara Bushinsky, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, let's get started. The first item up is codification, and the process for this was that Taji and I and other folks in the steering committee, Anne and Lakiana, met with city attorneys and we're talking through some of the draft of the codification document. And where we left it was unclear. And so Anika today wrote an email and said that the staff were supposed to pick up somewhere and do something. Maybe Anika, you could explain what your understanding is and make sure the staff knows what it is that they're supposedly doing.
Yeah, so we last left off, and the mayor's staff at the time, Amanda Watson, she was sort of organizing our meetings, and we received feedback from, I believe, Taji and you, Elliot, and with regards to, I think it was the members' responsibility and the deliverable products area. And based on that, we're going to work with PCCEP staff to see if they had any feedback based on that information. And that's where we are right now.
Okay, so
Huh.
PCCEP staff, are you following up with that piece, Theo, maybe?
Yeah, we met with the mayor's staff today, earlier today, and we are, so the process, as Anika stated, we have to send the amendments for anything to the Amici as well as the DOJ for approval, but we're all on the same page with Taji's most recent comments.
Okay, maybe we can get then the final version to send out to make sure all of PCCEP members have seen it, you know, so that we're all sort of brought up to speed, because I'm not sure how closely people have been following the process. Do you have that final sort of the document where it is currently, Theo?
Yeah, no, this is Anika. I wanted to see, I guess, where we are in terms of where we left off with the comments in that draft, in that working document that we were all looked at, I think, earlier this summer. So I want to get the feedback from PCCEP staff on the comments there, as well as the, what did you call it? The process for recruitment that I think also needs to be added to it. So that information needs to be incorporated.
Anika, are you referencing the, not suggestion, but the move to 15 members and the removal of the 2-year term, like those things that weren't like, they were brought up to PCCEP officially, but not voted on officially, or like necessarily.
That stuff too.
That stuff too? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're supposed to do next on all of that, because it's sort of uncharted territory for us in the sense that we could vote on these things. Then does that change? Because we did have like a gauge of people's like interest in them, but I don't know where we're going to go from here on those topics. Like if that's something that should be back on PCCEP to take on the agenda and add it to something like we need to officially vote on these things, or if it's things that if we got a consent, like we had a general consensus around the 15 one at least. The other one had one person say they were not a fan of it. Moving the 1-year term, excuse me. So yeah, I was just wondering if you had any insights on that.
Well, this is something that, you know, as a committee, you'll have to agree on whether you would like to make that change.
So we brought it up, and the consensus was, at least of, you know, except for one member, that a yes to both of those issues. So I think as far as what I could see, PCCEP is on board with what that document said. And at this point, we're just waiting for the next step to happen that's out of our hands.
I remember, Elliot, that I think there were 7 PCCEP members that were at that meeting, and there was consensus there, but I wonder if a vote might be prudent.
Sure, we could bring it up at the next full board meeting for a vote. So let's just get the, has PCCEP
Are those
staff,
the only 2 things that need to be voted on, and everything else is already like kosher for vote? Like no one else had any, yeah, Anne, sorry.
Didn't we have someone from the mayor's office working on it and she was kind of tracking all of that and then she left and who, Anika, are you talking to
So
someone from the mayor's office on that that kind of stepped into that role? Because I felt like we were pretty close to finish on that.
So the person who I believe has taken over for that is either Sam Diaz or Sam Adams. But at the same time, there's the comments that were within the draft. I'm going to Amanda Watson at the time requested some feedback from PCEP staff as to the inner workings, and so in terms of like the subject matter expert administratively, it's helpful to have their input on that so we can move forward. So that's essentially the next step. And then I'll take a look at it, give it to you all to look at. And then before we can really move forward, DOJ needs to approve it, as well as we need to consult with AMAC and the PPA on the amendments, and then City Council has to approve it as well.
Could I ask you, Anika, what the distinction, I know there's a distinction between the PCCEP plan and this codification document. And in your email, you referred to the PCCEP plan. Are those two documents being edited, or is it just the codification?
Well, the PCCEP plan is like the essential foundation base. And I'm not going to, I have like a template I'm kind of working on with the codification, but the codification like language that's going to be in the city code will have like your responsibilities, how many members, the process, the selection for like appointment. And so until we finalize what's in the PCCEP plan, then those things are still kind of movable. So I have it kind of roving to work on. And then once we've decided and it's all good, then that stuff the language can be into the codification. We can move forward on that. But
okay,
that's the process. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So the next step is staff needs to comment on the document, the PCCEP plan. Theo, could you, what would be a reasonable deadline for getting those comments to Anika?
Well, Amanda, Judith, Claudia, and I had already had those conversations, and I just think that Anika wasn't there, so we can synthesize the comments after this meeting. So by the end of the day today, I can send off, I believe, everything that Anika needs.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. And so then we could get that, whatever that finalized penultimate document to the public, and we will discuss it at our next full board meeting. And
Elliot, I have a question real quick before you move on, if you don't mind.
please.
Okay. In the PCCEP plan, Anika, there's a lot of sections that are I call it mismatched between being operational and being what I call an action plan, kind of thing. And I was wondering, are you going to realign that plan so it looks like an actual working document? Or are we going to have separate bylaws as well?
Well, for sure, the bylaws, and if the bylaws should not be in conflict with the PCCEP plan.
No, it's not a conflict, honey.
Okay.
It's not a conflict. It's are they coordinated so the information is clearly articulated as to which document does what? Right now, in my mind, when I read those two documents, it's blurry as to which one is truly bylaws information and which one is PCCEP plan information. They're kind of intermingled in the PCCEP plan.
And the bylaws.
And the bylaws. They're not clear.
Okay.
That's
So
something
Okay.
I was hoping would be reviewed for clarity as to what belongs in bylaws and what belongs in like your, what do you call it? Foundational plan or operational plan. Like you were saying, members, you know, terms, all of that typically go into bylaws. Typically,
Well, yeah, I mean, the document, the PCCEP plan that we originally working in, that it had all that information. So if
that's the
you know,
problem.
so if you don't want it in there, it's still, if talk amongst yourself in terms of if you don't want it in there, but it still has to go through the process of approval and consultation, just like I said. So if it's not clear, like the process in terms of commenting, providing your feedback would be helpful if it's not clear to you.
Okay, so maybe Amy, you could send comments to Anika and Theo about what you think should go where. They could consult and figure out a way to clarify those
Yeah,
things.
I'll work with Barb over the next few days because I pretty much got it in my head what should be in a bylaw and what should be in, I guess, okay, is the PCCEP plan then our organizational plan? Is that what we're calling it?
I would say it's more like your mission, the scope of work, your responsibilities, your deliverables and expectations, and interworkings with PPB, the non-PPB city staff. That's kind of that is sort of like how everyone operationally works. Like if you want to know
Okay.
what.
Okay.
Does
So
that
it
make
is an
sense?
operations manual in essence.
Sure.
Okay.
And
Okay.
plan
That
is-
makes more sense.
The PCCEP plan is approved by city council and it has a bunch of different channels to go through to be amended. Like it has to have, it has to be viewed and approved by AMAC and MHA, and has to go through the Department of Justice so they can have eyes on it before it can be amended. And then it has to be adopted by city council. The bylaws don't have those same, it doesn't have that same process for amending the bylaws.
Not clear where
Right.
codification
That's right.
amongst the bylaws and the PCCEP.
So then the next question is, where is the codification in between the PCCEP plan and the bylaws?
I think that's what Anika was saying, that she will be figuring out what goes in which document and assigning it to the right document and then bringing it back to us.
But there will be 3 documents.
So now we're going to have 3 documents, the codification, the Portland plan, I mean, the PCCEP plan and the bylaws?
Well,
Apparently-
codification is, a part of the Portland City Code. So that is where
That part
PCCEP will
doesn't matter to
exist.
me, sorry.
Well, that's what codification is.
Okay. Okay, so it's gonna be what lands in city code for future. Okay, for the future
Exactly.
workings of PCCEP, when we're all gone, it'll be a document that can kind of stand on its own. Okay, that is easier to work with. Now I can create something. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Sure.
Anika, for clarifying that.
I hope so.
Well, we're all working towards the same goal here. And if we could get Jared a copy of that as well, so he's apprised, because it's going to need to go to the DOJ anyway. Okay, so the next thing up is the court response, or PCCEP response to the court. We voted on that at the full meeting, but there were some changes that were made before we voted on it, and I believe Taji is going to be working on that.
I have it here. I just wanted to ask here before, if I forgot anything else. I changed, I added before we start bulleting the items, I say below, find the DOJ's remedies. So it's very clear that it's not our language or our remedies necessarily. And I didn't want to say verbatim either, because it isn't verbatim for sure. It's mostly verbatim though. And then is there anything else I missed? There was the language that Vadim suggested, but we did figure out that that language is already in there.
Can you share it in the chat?
What part of it? The whole thing?
Yeah, because it's not a very long document, right? And did you highlight your changes?
And maybe we should actually, Jared, could you put in the chat the remedies? I think we should just quote the DOJ so there's no, so it's clear what the DOJ is saying and not put words in their mouth.
Yeah,
I can do that. I'm on my phone right now, so I do have my computer open and I'll log in separately there, and I think I can paste the remedies.
Cool.
Also, and to your point, it's a little bit long of a document. It won't let me paste the whole thing into the chat.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But literally, that's the only change that I made because I can't recall any other changes besides the Vadim one, which you figured out it wasn't necessary. So I just wanted to see if I missed any other points. If not, then I'll send this over to Claudia once I get those things from Jared.
And Claudia, when you get it, in addition to posting it, it should go to the court and to the mayor. So, get those documents to them, and then we will be the court date. Jared, remind us when the court date is. Or so someone know when the court date is?
I thought it was the 25th, okay, 24th.
The 24th of August, I think it's a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's on the 24th. I'll put in the chat the exact info. It's from it's just ranges from 9 to 5 down at the courthouse.
And does anyone know, are we signing up to give testimony? How does that work?
It's still unclear right now, according to the DOJ. They don't really know who's going to be speaking right now. And that's just what we know right now. We don't know what the process is going to be for speaking. Previously, they've had the Amici speak and the city attorney speak, Department of Justice, and then PCCEP members have been invited to opine, and then PCCEP staff have spoken as well, but we don't know what it's going to look like right now.
Okay, so hopefully when we get that out,
is it an 8-hour court date?
Because usually the public gets to comment, or last time the public got to comment. So there are a lot of people who sign up to testify. Okay, so while we're on the subject of the settlement agreement, Jared and Anika, I don't know if you're able to give us an update on the negotiations between the city and the DOJ. Jared, do you want to go first?
Jared's just coming back in. He's still.
Oh, okay. Anika, are you part of that?
No, that would probably be something best for Heidi, and
Okay.
she's not at this meeting, but Jared could definitely chime in.
Okay, is Jared back on?
Still says joining.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
We can come back to it to go to a time.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's move on. We'll get back to that when Jared joins us. So Taji, I think you're up next.
Yeah, so this one sparked an interesting conversation at the end of our meeting last month. And so it has, this is around new membership. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, but the end all goal is to get 3 new members, 3 new alternates to be official members of PCCEP. And then also just ensuring any alternates that have been, any applicants have been at least moved to alternates so we can vote and look at everyone by the time we come to the August vote. So we just also wanted to get clarification from the staff in the mayor's office if there was a meeting, which Theo said there was, about this topic in particular, and clarification because there was obvious lack of clarity at our last meeting about this. Anne, I see your hand.
Yes, I know that there's a few people that had applied that Theo just sent them an email saying that he would get back to them. And so, yeah, I'm just interested in, and I know a lot was
hinging on the meeting that PCEP staff had with the mayor. So I'm interested in what the status is of that and of the applications that that we have currently. I know of 2. I don't know of any other.
Yeah, so there are 3 additional applicants in addition to the 2 alternates that we have in Tia and Donna. So those interviews will be held this month if we can make it happen with the folks who were invited to participate in the interviews. And Judith has reached out to the interviewees about scheduling a time this month so we can get them onboarded as soon as possible, whether they're an alternate or a new member. In the meeting today, so you'll be getting more correspondence from the mayor's office, but essentially what was, so it'll be a process, right? So the selection process has to go through AMAC, has to have eyes on MHA, because it's in the PCEP plan, the selection process. So it'll also have to go through the DOJ as well. So ultimately, the interview process will be outlined in such a way that it includes AMAC, MHA, community, at least 1 co-chair, and at least 1 subcommittee chair if they're available, as well as PCEP staff, mayor's staff if they're available, and either the deputy director or the director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights, so Dr. Webster or Dr. Dessous. And the mayor will make a selection for appointment with the guidance and deference of Dr. Webster, so Markeisha. And you'll be getting that information in official correspondence from the mayor's office probably tomorrow.
So just to clarify, the OEHR's directors will be the decision makers at the interview panel. Will the interview panel itself discuss this, and then the OEHR makes their final decision? Okay.
It'll be in consultation with the entire panel, and then the mayor, because as the mayor's committee, the mayor will make the final determination, but it'll be with guidance. And I think, Anika, you were in these conversations. Was the word deference? I believe it was deference to Dr. Webster or the director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Yeah, it was something to, I don't remember the exact words, but it was in consultation with essentially the feedback of director of OEHR.
Okay, then, yeah, like Barb was saying, we've been going around this topic, so I'm agnostic to it. I think I mean, I would love to hear people's opinions on the new plan. If there is any, Ellie, I see yours first. I'll save mine.
No, I was just wanting to know from Theo what the timeline is, do you think, for actually having members chosen?
The mayor's office said this month we'll have a full committee. You will.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Thanks. That's it.
Okay. So as long as all the interviews work out, we'll be able to look at the 3 applicants in addition to the existing alternates at the August meeting for an official vote, which is really exciting. I know there's a lot of really great alternates that have been waiting, so I'm very excited to get that process moving forward. And thank you, leadership from staff, on getting that all together with the mayor's office. I know it was a long way coming. And with that being said, we'll obviously have that on the agenda, but from there we can go to our next item, which also had a bubble burst earlier, we heard the news of, but the leadership of the Racial Equity Subcommittee. So maybe I'll defer to Theo or Claudia to give an update and then share the news.
Sure, we can. Jared is also on the line now, just so you all know. So if you want me to go back, but we can also. But PCEP staff, as well as Celeste, who has had lots of conversations with the previous Racial Equity Subcommittee Chair, Marcia Perez, the wonderful Marcia Perez, has decided to step into the role of the chair of the Racial Equity Subcommittee. So Celeste, if you want to say any kind of words or anything like that, I know it's a big job, as we would say, big moccasins to fill, but thank you for doing that. If you want to say a couple words, please do.
Certainly, yeah. I had spoken with Marcia prior to her leaving, and still hope to have more conversations. And the idea was to learn what she had moved forward, to find ways to build some bridges to make sure that we were able to connect with some of the, oh, excuse me, let me mute this real quick. Make sure that we move forward with having community members having a voice at the table. Make sure we had some commitments from Portland Police to see if we can move forward with their involvement. And so I told her I would be happy to work to that end. And so that's where we are right now. I mean, there are a lot of still moving parts that Theo and Claudia and I are working on, but that's where we are for the moment. I'm entertaining any questions.
No, well, if there are any questions, I would love to hear that. Thank you. And thank you, Celeste, for taking that leadership position and stepping up for that, because I know we needed to get some support there. I'm glad you got to talk with Marcia as well about the position and hearing from her expertise. And I know Lakiana is obviously still here, and he's bringing some great expertise to the RES as well. So excited to have you. I'm really excited to see the work you work on with the Racial Equity Subcommittee. I want to defer back to, oh, well, first I want to see if there's any questions. If there's any questions for Celeste, please share them. But in addition, back to the earlier point with Jared, he shared in the comments about where the negotiations are. And I don't know if Jared, there was anything else you wanted to share beyond that, but you said that there will be more brought up at the court hearing, which is good to hear as well.
Could I just ask you, Jared, one of the things that comes up when we are engaged in conversations like about the Court Patrol recommendations is people in the city saying, oh, we can't do that because the DOJ won't allow us to do it. And then when we talk to you, you say, no, that's not true. And how we can, you know, sort of have a meeting of minds about where the obstacles actually lie to getting some of this reform done, and whether it requires amending the agreement to do things like requiring ECIT training for all of the officers.
Or another one is the more contentious PPA, or not PPA, but the more contentious police. There was a thing saying that the DOJ settlement agreement stops the PSRs from responding to suicide calls. That was debunked by the DOJ. So those sorts of things are really important to clarify. I don't know if you had any insights on that to share, Jared.
I think you're muted, Jared. You don't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I had to shut it off. Let me turn off my air conditioner because it's extra loud. So it's not new to me that the Department of Justice and the settlement agreement is used as a shield by those who may not want to do a particular thing or another. And I'm happy to debunk, or whatever the word is, in real time. There are obligations under the settlement agreement that, you know, conceivably could stand in the way in terms of a quick action. But the settlement agreement's not static. It is definitely a floor, not a ceiling. So more progressive reforms are typically consistent with the terms of the agreement. This idea that the settlement agreement stands in the way of Portland street response was news to me. We ended up getting a question by a reporter, and we were able to put something on the record. I had never even heard that line of defense before. So if, you know, someone from the city is saying that, it's news to me. They've never said it to me. And I'd be very interested to know who's putting out that misinformation. The same thing I think is true of the Citizen Review Committee and their standard of review. It is a definition of the settlement agreement, the standard of review that they apply. But if the city wants to change that, it's certainly within their right to change it. And then if there is a conflict, it's an easy amendment. It is more of a administerial type of fix. you know, so it really depends on the context and the circumstance where we're being used as a shield to police reform. I would encourage you to let me know in real time immediately if you can, and or have me at the meeting so I can, you know, at least provide the expert input that I have in representing the Department of Justice. I can't always make decisions, but there are certain things I know and I can provide that intelligence. With regard to ECIT, there is a notion that enhanced crisis intervention training needs to be provided to a volunteer group of members that is consistent with the Memphis model. But the Memphis model is already not being done by the city. They've already adapted it to their own needs and desires. And that's the great thing about the Memphis model, is that it accounts for local conditions and what locals want to do with respect to their program. So I would be, you know, really curious to hear the city say now that the Memphis model, you know, prevents them from expanding enhanced crisis intervention training when they, you know, didn't adopt the Memphis model anyway. They've got adaptations to it because they don't send ECIT officers to every mental health call. They send them to a subset that indicate an increasing risk of harm to self or others. And that's legitimate from our perspective because the Memphis model is supposed to incorporate local conditions and local concerns. That's all a long-winded way of saying I don't buy it in the general sense. In the specific sense, I would need to know what is being said about what's possible and what's not. But you know, in all events, the settlement agreement can be and has been amended to account for various changes. So, you know, we are facing the potential and the real possibility of more amendments given the slate of remedies that we've introduced. Remedy number 8 requires an amendment, so it's an opportune time to make more amendments, you know, so that they're all a slate. But again, that's going to be up to the city. The department isn't going to, isn't likely to foist amendments onto the city. We have an agreement with them. If they want to change it to do something that's more responsive to the community, we will be open to that. I guarantee it. So, you know, to the extent you guys are pushing more progressive reforms through your core patrol services or anything else, you know, keep doing that and don't think that the settlement agreement is a barrier. I can almost guarantee you that it isn't. And to the extent it is, it's not an insurmountable barrier. It's very surmountable.
So let me ask you specifically, because this came up at the work session, the ECI mandating ECIT for all officers, is that something the DOJ would find acceptable?
That would be a question I would need to take to my superiors, given that there is direct language requiring ECIT for a volunteer group of a subset of officers. I don't think that's an insurmountable barrier. I think that is one that would probably require an amendment. And we would have to talk to our expert on our psychology expert and talk to some of the decision makers who are above Jonas and me. But you know, we would entertain that recommendation if the city wanted to propose that to us.
Okay, could I just ask, because that came up as one of the core patrol things, ask you to inquire what the DOJ stance is rather than the city?
I will take that up the chain.
Thanks. And Barb, was that a hand up or hand up and down? Okay.
No, she has a question. Just hang on. Or comment. Go ahead.
Nope. Done.
Okay. So I see in the chat you said, when will core patrol go before city council? So this is, we had the work session, so in that sense it went before city council. There is a dashboard that Sam Diaz put together, which is going to be posted publicly this week apparently, and the idea is that individual council members, commissioners will be sort of responsible for dedicating staff to see the implementation goes forward. Now, individual pieces from the core patrol recommendations may be converted into ordinance language and be sponsored by commissioners sometime in the future. But there is no sort of date that we have on the books yet to go forward with that. So we're sort of in a waiting pattern to see how this implementation will take place. Taj, is that your understanding?
Yeah, nothing else really to add on that. I think we were trying to aim for September on that, but I can't, like Elliot said, we can't be definitive on that just because of the nature of the work being so up in the air and volatile, and the staffing situation being really volatile as well at the mayor's office. So we have to just wait and hope that we get some updates from them as opposed to us having to reach out if we don't hear anything. So.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about that a little bit. So, Asena Lawrence used to be the liaison for PCCEP, and then I think in June she transferred out of that office, and Sam Diaz was sort of acting for a while. It's been about over a month that Sam Adams has been selected as the new liaison, but as far as I know, he has not met, certainly with any PCCEP. He hasn't been at any of our meetings. I don't know if the staff has met with him. Has the staff met with him?
Yeah, we have met with him. He was today along with Sam Diaz. And so just as history, just so everybody knows, so in interest of transparency, the first liaison was Nicole Brandt, then we had Robert King, and then there was Asena Lawrence. And now, and then Sam Diaz, he does a lot of stuff, but he was never really the liaison for PCCEP, but he does a lot of stuff. And because he was so prominent in the Corporate Patrol Services stuff, he kind of stepped in where he was needed because that's what Sam Diaz does. But I don't know if Sam Adams is going to be the liaison. I think because they're hiring so much, then it's still kind of up in the air who the liaison will be. And this isn't to like be adding allusion to anyone or anything like that. I'm just trying to communicate the information that I know. So I don't know who the liaison is going to be moving forward. I know that we met with Sam Diaz and Sam Adams today. We being myself, Dr. Dessou, Dr. Webster, Judith, and Claudia.
Okay, so from my perspective, it feels like there's been a lack of consistent liaisonship with the mayor's office, to put it as clearly as I can. And I think it would just be helpful for them to solidify that role, figure out a person, and have that person actually attend at least the full board meeting, if not, steering committee and other meetings, to be apprised of what we're doing. So I don't know, Theo, if you're meeting with those people, maybe you could let them know.
Yeah, and we
sorry. How are we documenting this? Because I hear what you're saying, Elliot, and I also hear what Theo's saying, and I know that there's been a lot of rotation within the mayor's office, and that's acceptable to a degree, but then we also have to get our things done. But I think it should be documented just so that we can just have really clear notes about that. And I'm only saying this because I want to give the mayor's office the benefit, but then also make sure that we are also getting our needs met. And so as long as we're like documenting, like, when was this ask made? Are we keeping track of when so-and-so was our person versus when the next person was, and when's that gap in between that, I think would be helpful. Just my thoughts, maybe I'm off.
And like Jared and Anika said, we're told by Sam Diaz that Sam Adams is our liaison. So like the mayor's office said that, but I'm hearing that it's maybe different. And like, I agree with Lakiana, we should somehow make it clear that this sort of continued ebbing and flowing of the office is not out of our control.
I don't want to say I'm not in disagreement with Anika or Jared. They probably have better information than I do. I was just saying that they mentioned at the meeting that they were hiring a lot of people. And I don't know if the new director of community safety or whoever in Mayor Wheeler's office is going to step into that because of the amount that Sam Adams has on his plate. And I just don't know. And like I said, Anika and Jared probably have better information.
If I may, real quick, Theo, though, I think Lakiana and Taji were just saying that in our notes, in our minutes, it's really helpful to put in there who is working with us, who's absent, because it really shows in our performance if we don't have a lot of staff support. So that's kind of what I was thinking they were saying, is just document what we're going through, not having consistent staff involvement with our group. That's all, just documented, you know, because our group will be judged on what our outcomes will be, but it's kind of difficult if we don't have a lot of internal support, you know, to move things a certain direction.
And a good place to document that, Amy, would be in the quarterly report, which Theo would be due this month. So I don't know where you are on that, but that might be a place to sort of talk about this liaison position.
Yeah, and the change in our structure, the fluctuation. Yeah.
So Theo, could you get bring forward that document for the full board meeting?
For sure. And I can put in the transfer from Asena to Sam Adams. I can mention that. Or did you want just in like a quarterly report, do you want all of the different liaisons just because now we're thinking of it? Or do you just want right now the transfer from Asena to Sam Adams?
I would suggest, I think a note can be made in the quarterly report, but I think just some internal notes for our own tracking is most helpful in this situation. If we want to put in the quarterly report some comments on our liaison, I think that's good. But I think just internally, one more point to Sam Adams, you know, that's another point where we can also make suggestions, because if you know anything about Sam Adams, his schedule is so busy. He's like the chair of like 15 different things right now. So, you know, if we're seeing that, we could also make a suggestion or something else like that, just knowing like who's going to have the real capacity, or if we do stick with them, just be aware of, you know, what that's going to mean. Like, we're not going to have a Senate, you know, type of communication, or even, I honestly think the best we had, or not the best we had, but the one that seemed to be really great was Robert King seemed to have the capacity, time, energy for it in the best way. I think Asena did great too, but I wasn't as much aware as all of her stuff. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in addition to highlighting sort of who's been in that role, like whether they're actually functioning in that role, because I've sent an email to Sam Adams several times and have not heard back from him. So my feeling is that he has been appointed to that role, but he's not acting as a liaison if he does not communicate with the board he's supposed to be acting as a liaison with. So yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll resolve that. But given the past history where the liaisons have been not always in the best communication, and the fact that the DOJ and COCL both noted the, you know, partial compliance for the city's support, I think it's an issue we need to focus on to make sure
I think we need to increase our channels of communication, because just to be fair, an email from you, you know how many emails he's probably getting, you know, like and Theo, you said you already met with him. I think we need to streamline our forms of communication, because you might be, if we can all say, hey, here's all the emails we need for this person or that person, so that they're streamlined, so they're, or whatever communication it is. Because I think, I don't know, it just seems a bit unfair to expect someone, but that also does not mean that we should be ignored. Like, I 100% agree that there are things that PCCEP needs in order to be effective. But on the flip side, just based off of like they're assigned to it and they didn't get back to my individual email, and then that's why we're saying we don't think that they're an effective communicator. It's like, that's such a huge
No, I understand. I mean, it
Yeah.
wouldn't just be an email, but Lakiana, since he has been appointed, he has not been at any PCEP meeting. And as far as I know, has not communicated with any PCEP member. I consider that a lack of effective doing your job as a liaison. And I agree with you, like if there are channels that should be, other channels that should be used, but I'm just not getting signs of any proactive communication from that side. Anne.
Yeah, I wanted to agree with Elliot. I hear what you're saying, Lakiana, and I agree with you as well, but we really haven't had anyone connect with us since she left last spring or in June. I mean, Sam Diaz was here a few times, but yeah, we aren't getting much communication at all or assistance from the mayor's office. And I understand he's had a lot of movement in his office, but it seems like there should be someone. So I hope we keep asking for that. I did see that Jared said that he and the Kokol are going to be interviewing Sam Adams and Kofi in the coming weeks. So maybe we'll get some information from that.
And to your point, Anne, I agree with that 100%. And as I'm saying, document that stuff so we have somewhere that's clearly staying and that members can even look at, right? I'm a visual person. I'm hearing like 15 numbers and this over there. If we can see when's the gap been, do we even have a document that says these are our expectations as far as what's our communication channel? That could even help the person who's going to be filling that role too, so that they are clear what is even expected of them in that.
Yeah, one of them, last thing I wanted to say is that the person that was helping us with codification, and then she informed us, she was really pushing that along, organizing that for the mayor's office. And then we were notified that she was leaving and we haven't heard really anything about that. And I can't remember when she left. And I agree that the note-taking is, we aren't doing a good job, or I'll just say for myself, I can't remember exactly when she left.
Okay, so I think we've settled on that. Todd, you want to take the last item?
I thought you were taking this one.
So the last item was just a question as we hopefully move beyond COVID, although now it seems we're back in it, but I thought it'd be worth thinking about the question of in-person versus online meetings, and at least start a conversation here about that. The new guidance from Multnomah County obviously requires people to be masked. It would not prevent, however, in-person meetings. I think there are advantages and disadvantages to each. So I don't really have a dog in this race per se, but I thought it would be useful to discuss it and think about it. So Anne, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Sorry, old hand.
Old hand. Okay. Does anyone have thoughts on whether we should be moving back to in-person meetings or continue on with our Zoom meetings for PCCEP?
Yeah, I personally think that there is still a lot of benefit still to Zoom for people. It's more accessible for folks to access it from different locations who can't get to the main location where the meetings were, which when it was in person, the few times I was there, it rotated locations, so it could vary across the city. And my other bone in there, I guess, is that I'll be in Chicago starting the end of September till October. And I mean, till December. So I definitely obviously cannot be there in person. So I'd have to be calling in if we were to do that, which I'm not opposed to at all. I'm definitely want to accommodate how everyone else feels about this. I'm just saying my personal situation here. So yeah. Oh, yeah, Barb, there is a good point there though as well. Thank you.
And I can kind of give an update too. These are conversations that I've already started having with our production team, Open Signal, and we've talked about what it would look like for meetings in the future. And they did let me know that they're currently working on a way to do hybrid meetings. And so I haven't got any update from them so far, but that was where we left off, is that they are going to work on how they can bring that hybrid to the in-person and digital for folks. So I look forward to hopefully that happening one day for us.
Do people feel there's a difference between like the subcommittee meetings versus the full board meeting in terms of the need to have an in-person aspect to it? I'm really happy because it makes these meetings much more accessible for me to do them online. And I guess I wouldn't be able to do as many meetings if we actually had to meet for all of them. But I'm wondering if we did transition to a hybrid thing, that maybe the subcommittee meetings could benefit from remaining online.
My thoughts are, I think for the time being, the meeting should continue to be online. It wouldn't make sense to transition back to in-person when things are still so unpredictable. And it looks like most other agencies, committees, I don't even think city council's meeting in person. So yeah, so it's like, I would use them as the barometer. I would look at them and then everything going down. I do agree with Elliot's point though, that there's less meetings when it's in person. And I actually think that that might be a good thing. I think we're stretched a little thin right now, a lot thin. And especially if we're missing so many members, but that's something we can still fix internally. Like just because it's so convenient to have a meeting and we could convene like 50 a month doesn't mean that we necessarily should. And I think we should pay really close attention to workload, look at the attendance of meetings and just see like what makes sense. And just because we can have a meeting and can take on something, does it actually make sense for us to do? And what's the saturation? Is it all 12 committee members attending all of them, or is it 2 or 3 or 4 people attending 10 of them, and then maybe reduce some of that? I think is the best approach, but I suggest we continue to do in person, online.
Okay, so it sounds like that sounds like that's the consensus. Continue online for now, and then think about the hybrid possibilities. And at some point in the future, if COVID is a different situation, we could think about certain meetings being in person.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point that all the public meetings that are the general committee, they're all recorded and streamed online, but the subcommittees before the pandemic, none of them or rarely were streamed and recorded, aside from perhaps the quarterly report from COPO. So this does make it more accessible for a lot of folks who missed the meeting and want to watch later.
Barbara?
Hi, yeah, I have not been able to get the recordings. I've tried several different meetings. They don't work. What happens is it'll show the meeting I want, and then when I click on it, it'll show a different meeting. I don't know what's happening with that, so.
Barbara, this is Barb. Do you want to get together? I think I know what the problem is and I can help you out.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
Okay.
I'll give you my phone number.
Sometimes. So yeah, let's do that. You've got my information.
And Barb, also
Okay.
the videos are like under a playlist on the YouTube, on the PCCEP YouTube. So I can also help you too.
I know, I live my life that way, Claudia.
Okay. Well, I was talking to, sorry, Barbara. My bad. I meant Barbara.
Okay.
No, I didn't understand what you said. Claudia, I didn't understand what you said.
Oh, I said that the PCCEP meetings are all listed under the playlist tab as well for each subcommittee. And so maybe that would be helpful, finding like the video that you're
I'll try it a different way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I can also help you like direct you via email. So I can touch bases with you and Barbara.
Okay.
for that.
Okay, so we've got, we've done all our agenda items. There are a couple of.
One more, Elliot, sorry,
Uh,
the retreat.
Oh, right, that's, yes. Go for it.
Theo, do you wanna, I saw you, your mic went off quickly. You wanna go ahead?
It looks like Barb Rainish has her hand up. I just didn't want that to get lost.
Oh, sorry.
I think that's a previous hand from Barb. Is that right? Is that a previous old hand? Old hand, new hand. I think that was an old hand.
Okay, yeah. So for the retreat, I thought Theo, you were about to just go about talk about it real quick. But yeah, we were supposed to do one this summer. We put out a couple doodle polls. Staff put out a couple doodle polls, and I think we just weren't getting good responses from everyone, or not good, but like responses from everyone. And that obviously makes it hard to schedule those. So another suggestion I would maybe have is putting out, giving a couple dates at the meeting and figuring out there at the end of the meeting, we then decide like that sort of way, live, like that is one way I could think about it. Or not live, but like in the background. And another, yeah, and then, or sending out another doodle poll and making sure we get folks to communicate. I think it would be good to wait until we have the rest of the new members added. So just shooting for October or September seems adequate. Did anyone have anything? Theo, do you want to share anything on that?
Yeah, we could also, we could break it into 2 separate nights. So it's not such a time intensive one night, because I know that's a big thing for a lot of scheduling folks. Claudia and I are both parents of young children as well. So it is, we know how tough it is firsthand to schedule time for anyone. And also with Dr. Webster's schedule, so busy, like identifying a day that works for her, and then that works for all of PCCEP, because we want everybody on PCCEP to be there, but certainly the majority. So if it would work for you all to break it up into 2 nights, we're certainly willing to do that. Otherwise, we really want to get a retreat scheduled, because it feels like the more retreats, the better right now, because it is so difficult to have those kind of personal relationships over a screen for the past year and a half.
Yeah, definitely. So trying to figure out how we can get that retreat together is going to be key. Just wanted to bring it up here so folks could start getting thinking about it. And as well as something else that I mentioned when the steering committee met, just as the steering committee, and wanted to discuss like how we could potentially have something called like an executive session where we could have all of PCCEP meet without having to have have it be a private session focused on X topics, similar to like a work session. I don't see the necessity of it right now, but I'm just saying I think I want to explore how we could potentially do that as well. In this similar idea of like a retreat allows us to all come together, but this one would be able to actually talk about work and it be shared out to the community and what we worked on, or even recorded and shared to the community, whatever works. So I'll just table both of those and we can go into does anyone have any thoughts on either the retreat or on that executive session idea before we go to the agenda making for the day, for the July August meeting?
I just,
okay.
Sorry, I couldn't get to the raise hand feature fast enough. I need a button. I like the idea of having a retreat, but we've already tried 4 times to get everybody on the same day and time. And breaking it into 2 nights is even going to be more complicated. So why don't we just put a retreat on hold and find out how to have more work sessions? Because I think we can get to know each other in our working of conversing, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I think that to me is more relevant. We need to talk about things together as a group and not retreat stuff. And we have yet to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what bonds a lot of groups together, is their working process, I think. That's
For
just
sure.
my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right, Amy. I do miss that piece of in the person really getting a chance to pull our sleeves up and get working on important stuff, you know. So I definitely am in support of that and figuring out a way we can get that. And I see what you mean about the retreat and how we can figure out how to maximize when we do have one, what we're doing in that time and using it to the best of our ability. With that being said, now let's move on to the agenda setting for the night.
Taji, before that, Anne had asked whether she could ask a question. Mary Claire is no longer here, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to raise the issue with the people here.
Thank you, Elliot. Yes, I thought about trying to get to her before she left, but I was just wondering, this past weekend, as many of us have read in local media, there were some issues that happened downtown, some events, and it appears that Portland Police Bureau was not in attendance, or they were sitting in cars or something. And I just wanted some clarity around that, specifically Sunday night when there was a person walking around with what appeared to be an AK-47, I believe. And I was just wondering, where were the officers? Where were the police officers? So that's my question.
And I agree. I wondered the same thing when I saw it, and I similarly wondered and thought about the contrast to their reactions to racial justice protests, starkly contrasting this reaction to white supremacists, supposedly white supremacists or alleged, or I don't know if they actually self-identified or not, but
there was
yeah,
actually,
I think we should.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There was actually a gentleman there that was identified in the insurrection on January 6th, reportedly doing security for the speaker. Yeah, it's just an issue, I think, as PCCEP, as our board, that we should, our subcommittee, that we should get clarity on from the Portland Police Bureau. And I know they're not here, so I'm wondering if that could be something that we could bring to our full board meeting, maybe have someone from the Bureau talk about that, because it does seem to be, I don't understand it.
Yeah, can we just, Theo, can you make sure that Mary Claire is apprised to that, to make sure she can make sure she has something? I'm unless they release an official statement on the exact event, which I don't think they would, but if they do, then that would suffice. But if they don't, could you make sure that so they can speak to it?
Yeah.
That Mary Claire's there, sorry, just so that, or not even there to talk about it. Thank you, Anne, for raising that. And then now we can finally get to the agenda making.
One more time, Taji, Barb now has her hand up again, and I think this is
Yay, it's going smoothly. Okay, so I'd like to add, even though I kind of know what the answer is going to be, that the street racing has also gotten out of hand, and the police are outnumbered. So they do not have anything that they're doing unless fire or EMS has to go in, and then they're sort of forced to. But this whole thing with the police not being around, or there not being enough of them, is really actually slowing down also the fire and rescue first response, which is a third issue. But the street racing, I think, can go up there with the stuff that I'm trying to think of a good name, and I'm just going to say the stuff that Anne's talking about. And the other one is a different thing. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna, before I say my thought.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Barb, but I'd like to focus on Sunday and the events that happened. it seems very odd to me that, as Taji said, when there's protests or something, that there's ample police in attendance. And in this case, a white man was walking around downtown Portland with a gun, and nothing happened. I'm very concerned about that. So I'd like to focus it on that. And if Mary Claire isn't the right person, if there's someone else from the Bureau that could talk to us about that and kind of help me understand.
Well, Mary Claire is the liaison, so Mary Claire will know best who to assign to talk to about that, if that's something that Mary Claire is going to speak about. But to Barb's point, as Barb is a community member here in the process of the PCCEP is to elevate the voice of the community. I'm not a PCCEP member, but I do think it's maybe important to raise both. So I'll send an email about both of those things to Mary Claire and just wait for the response.
Can I add in there too? I agree with Joe's point that both are very different but equally important. And I think what might even help strengthen what you're saying, Anne, is also maybe coming up. I don't know if this necessarily, there's some times where there's things that happen that I think there's like a couple of things we can do. We can make statements, or we could also make, like, I don't know what we'd call it, but like a suggestion, like not a whole full-on recommendation kind of a thing, like we have to go through this whole long process, but like, I feel like, Anne, you probably have a suggestion. I certainly do, and I'm certain other people do as well, of how they could have better responded to that. And is there a possibility that PCCEP could submit suggestions like, hey, we noted this event, we think this would have been a better way to handle it, and then just document those things as well. Same thing with the street racing. What was that, Barb? If there's a suggestion as to, so that way we're not just like asking questions, but also being productive with it. Like, hey, here's how we think you could improve on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually don't know what the suggestion. I'm actually just wanting to know. I want to know information. Like, I want to know, where were the officers when there was someone walking?
Well, maybe you
through
can
the
come over
city?
here and we can hang out.
So that's, but yeah, I mean, once I have the information, I might have a suggestion, but I'm really just interested because recently, as we know, I mean, they will show up at certain things. But I'm wondering, yeah. So anyways, I don't need to belabor the point.
Thank you, both of you, for your comments on that. Yeah, just point back to Mary Claire and see what she says on that. Maybe the operations person was what I was thinking, is like whoever was leading the downtown was who may speak to that. Back to the actual agenda for the August meeting. I know we have on there the vote on codification, voting on the codification document, plus voting on the, back up, sorry. Voting on the 15 members and voting on the 1-year term, removing of the 1-year term if we should. And then I don't think we're voting on the official codification document. I wrote that, but I don't think is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we will have the final draft of that document, and I think we should have a vote.
So all 3 votes then. Sorry, I thought I was worried.
Because those other things are woven into the codification, I think that maybe we could just vote on, we don't have to break it out into different votes. Like, here's the document.
Yeah.
Anika, are you sorry, Taji. Anika, are you still here?
Hi, yes.
Hi. Thanks, Anika. I was just wondering if a vote on codification, because it does contain some changes to the PCCEP plan, would those changes to the PCCEP plan in their process of having to go through AMAC, or the Amici, and then the Department of Justice, would those prevent in any way the vote for the codification taking place?
Well, here's essentially the PCCEP plan, and what you put into it will be the core, like what, like in terms of the amount of members, the terms, that's going to be in the codification document. But first, you all have to agree that this is the document you want to put forward for DOJ approval for AMAC and PPA to consult on. And then they may provide feedback, and then we'll have to go back and forth. I don't know what DOJ will say. I don't know what feedback we'll get, but before we move forward, you all should be in agreement that this is what you want to move on with. Does that make sense?
Sure. Sorry.
It does, Anika, but I'm just reminded that the last time we talked about this, the suggestions that had come from PCCEP about new members, there's been subsequent developments from the city side. So I'm not sure where the document you have now stands on that issue.
Well, essentially, I'm waiting on their information. So PCCEP staff, and maybe we'll meet in between just to make sure we've ironed out everything that is outstanding. That's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, so we'll
You know what I
just
mean?
wait,
So I mean,
wait to see
yeah.
what you give us. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And this is an old hand. Go ahead, Elliot. Sorry.
No, Anne, go.
Sorry, I'll take it down.
Okay. So then the next thing was for the agenda after the convocation is the new members. So wait, no, it's not. We're not voting on that. We are hearing who the new member would be then, I guess. And I guess should we allow them to introduce themselves if they're interested, or okay. And then in addition to that, we also had the people help me, please.
I
don't
think
know what else. What am I supposed to be on?
we have the quarterly
My fake
report,
notes.
which is going to be the quarterly
that.
report needs to be presented. This will be coming up, our meeting after the court hearing. So, I mean, I guess we could just report on that in the update. So that doesn't need to be a separate agenda item. I'm wondering on directives, though, there was a plan to have the settlement committee be looking at the directives that have come through, and do you know where that committee is on that?
We're actually looking at a bunch of them this week. There hasn't been any that relate that we've gotten any feedback on to this point from members or from the community, but we are reviewing a bunch this week. And if we do have some that we want, some feedback that we want to bring to the board, I will let you know. Our meeting's Thursday.
Thank you. And then in addition to that, the consultant votes we were supposed to have last month, we pushed back. Lucky, you actually weren't here for this either. I'm so sorry, I had to fuck up. There was 2 votes we were gonna have. One was on hiring a consultant for, and this also might beget the need to ask for a budget increase. It depends, it might, I don't know how all this works. But consultant for the FDCR records we got from last year, in addition to a consultant to perform a comprehensive strategic plan process for PCCEP. Both of those are things that have been raised by the steering committee, i.e. the second one, me. And then, so I think it's really important we get at least a consensus if the rest of the body is interested in those funding those positions and getting those hired and whatnot. And I'll discuss why at the other meeting. I don't want to waste time here. So that is another agenda item. And I can't, anything else? Yeah,
sorry guys, I don't have anything for the agenda, but I did want to put out there that Sam Adams was mayor when the settlement agreement was formed. I'm just putting it out there.
Then Another question I have is on that whole PPA negotiation, PSR situation holding up. I don't know if there's any updates we'll have by then, but I want to know an update if there is one by then on contract negotiations and those sorts of things. So maybe a spot for the DOJ would be good in there as well. Is that okay, Jared, to share at the PCEP meeting the stuff? Basically, probably the same stuff he'll share at the court hearing.
Yeah, definitely happy to share an update on the enforcement action negotiation. But as far as the union and the city's collective bargaining updates, that would be a question for Heidi.
Sorry, yeah, I conflated too many things, but I meant the negotiation stuff, but also the other stuff that you mentioned. So yeah, Heidi as well would be more to get there. Theo, could you make sure Heidi's gonna be there? She doesn't usually come, so it might have to be like a warm invite or a light invite.
I can send an email CCing Anika and Heidi. Anika's on this call.
Okay, perfect. Oh, Anika, you might be able to answer to it. Or do you think Heidi would be better for that topic? I know she does labor.
Yeah, she's definitely, she's going to be in the midst of all of that.
Will there be
she may have a conflict, so I'm not sure if she will be able, but okay. I will let her know, so that way if she's able, she will, she'll be able to attend if she can.
If she can let us know at
it's going to be a busy time period.
Yeah, we can throw a time out there. We can do like 5 minutes or something if that works best for her.
Okay, I will let her know. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you could always invite Daryl Turner.
Oh yeah, Daryl could speak on it as well. Yeah, from the PPA's perspective. Thank you. Yeah.
Barb had a question which she put in the chat. Barb, do you want to say what your question is?
No, which one are you looking at? Because I have another one.
Community input on new members, question mark, bios, question mark.
What are you guys planning to do? Last time you guys left the community sort of all in the dark hanging and had information about people and stuff ahead of time. And that was super awkward. So I guess that's one of the things I was talking about.
That part was on staff about not getting the bios sent over quick enough. And just for the interview purposes and for the selection purposes now, PCEP members as well as community members, so like individual community members will be reached out to, and then they'll be involved in the interview committee and the selection and ultimately selection of new members, and then Mayor Wheeler will make that appointment. So it won't be the process of going in front of this board and making a presentation about.
Right, I got that. I'm not at all concerned about that. I'm not even thinking about this as me being one of the people being up. I'm thinking about it literally as a community member and sitting there last time where there was, quote, public comment. So I guess there won't be that. I don't know.
There won't be, I don't think there'll be public comment or PCEP comment in public about this.
Well said.
The new process is to constitute this committee.
Right, I heard all that, Elliot.
Okay, so that's what I understand as the new process.
So that's that without the other is basically. So the final thing I want to say is that there was an op-ed in the Oregonian and Sunday from a police officer, and I would hope that you guys all would read it. And I think we're going to invite him to the behavioral health subcommittee and ask him if he wants to bring anybody with him. But I'm not 100% sure that that's what we're going to do yet.
And also, real quickly, throwing random updates out here, I guess. The youth subcommittee did not meet last week, and so we won't be meeting this month, because we lost Lana, and Britt was working on the Olympics, actually, so cool stuff. So we were both a little busy. He was running them, actually, so he was a little busy.
He was running in the Olympics?
Running them.
Oh, he's running the Olympics. Wow.
Yeah, basically, yeah. As he told me.
He's a triple threat.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, I think that we've covered all our agenda topics unless there's anything else. Looking forward to seeing all of you in subcommittee meetings and then our full board meeting in August. And everyone should remember, and when we get the information, I'm sure Theo and Claudia will send out to everyone, where and when the court hearing is, so people who want to speak to the court can speak to the court. Yes, a link to the Oregonian op-ed. Barb, could you put that in the chat? If not, maybe just send it to Theo and he could circulate it on email.
Yeah. Real quick, when you all asked about the process for speaking at court, I didn't have a good answer for you, and Jared was off the phone. Jared, do you have an answer that I don't about people's ability to speak in court, or is it still kind of up in the air?
I will say, based on historic practice, everyone will be allowed to speak in court if they want to come to court. Given there's Delta and COVID, this is a unique situation. It will not be my call. It will be the judge's call. It's his courtroom. But I know he's always very interested in hearing from any member of the public on anything you want to say, whether it's related to police or fluoride or whatever. We've had the full gamut historically, and I expect it to be the same. That said, I've spoken with folks from the Mental Health Alliance, and they are interested in exploring some way to do a Zoom testimony. That's going to be for them to suggest to the judge and for the judge to accept or reject. I don't know what that would look like, and if it's even technologically feasible. Alternatively, you can always submit comments in writing, or you could record a video and send it to me and I could post it.
Other than Zoom.
What is that, Amy?
I think she was trying to be on mute.
I was thinking if Zoom is too risky, there's WebEx and Microsoft's got one. Maybe there's a more secure platform that they're familiar with that we could tap into. There's lots and lots of chat programs that have more security than Zoom.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with a lot of those. I'm not familiar with what the court's familiar with. So that is beyond me. I am preparing a proposed run of show that I'll try to get folks on board with that would give PCCEP a 30-minute chunk to do whatever testimony any of you that show up would want to provide to the court. I know the court would be very interested in some of your critiques of anything, police, mayor's office responsiveness, the DOJ, and what we've been doing. It is my birthday, so be as hard as you want on me. And the DOJ and the list of remedies and the enforcement stuff, all of it is on the table. So I do encourage you to come if you feel safe and to speak your mind, whether that's, in your capacity as a PCCEP member or just a Portland citizen. I think the judge, and I know I'll be interested in hearing it. So yeah, do encourage you to come, PCCEP and all the members of the community here.
Thank you, Jared, and we're looking forward to celebrate your birthday right after. So that is really exciting, and I'm glad we get this. Hopefully we can, this is everything we can wrap up for now, and we'll obviously be in contact throughout the month. So really great meeting. Thank you everyone for showing up, and hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.